Thank you.
All right. And no Miranda today?
She's all right. She's in traffic.
Okay. All right. We'll begin. The September 18th, 2024 study session is called to order. Director Murray, King, Foster, and Schreiber are here, and Director Evans, who's running a little late, will be here shortly, we hope. You have the agenda before you for the September 18th, 2024 study session. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the September 18th, 2024 study session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director King, seconded by Director Murray. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the agenda has been approved. All right. So we have a number of items to discuss there. You want me to just hand it over to you to go through those? Or?
I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you. We have something new. Is this just
Yes, so at your desk you have an emergency position that came through late this morning. So feel free to take a look at that and we will also discuss it. But it's pretty, it's nothing huge. It's not like pages.
What's the recommendation on this one?
I would believe that would be unanimous, but that's for us to decide. Because of the emergency position, you don't get a chance to, we don't get a chance for the committees to have any, to buy in on it or give us recommendations. So, General Assembly, there's a couple of different things that we talk about during General Assembly. We have permanent positions, which are really kind of WASDA's core principles on issues and widespread concern for students, membership in other education organizations, and general public. Permanent positions represent WASDA's beliefs and values. And so when we're going through the General Assembly handbook, these positions are the ones that are really kind of driving the work of WASDA. So when you're thinking about, when it talking about the involvement in the community and different things, that isn't specific to Stanwood-Camano School District. That is at a much bigger picture in regards to WASDA and the overall all of the different districts within the state of Washington. The other type of position is a legislative position, which is a particular viewpoint or stance on a spectrum of state and local legislative issues. They are action-oriented and articulate desired legislative outcomes on behalf of the state's public school system. So when you're thinking about, just keep those things in your mind when we're going through the different positions. So, give Miranda a moment. So the very first thing was the consent agenda. Did everyone get a chance to look at that consent agenda? And I'm happy to discuss that a little bit. It does come with a legislative committee recommendations you do pass. And roughly, basically, it is covering multiple different types of funding sources that we could be having to advocate for in the state legislature. So unless there is a reason that someone has to pull any particular item off of there, we would make the recommendation to support all of the different types of funding sources for advocation.
We have consensus on the consent agenda there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here we go.
Second.
Let's forget I can't vote.
I'm going by consensus here.
So the next area in this is the bylaws. Bylaws kind of are, of course, governing pieces for WASDA. And so the first one is,
Might be faster to go through category 2 and 3 because we're probably not going to have much discussion on those.
well, I need to know how I need to be voting for everything. So if everyone just wants to go down the list and tell me which one, if we have consensus on all of them, and then we can actually delve into the ones that we don't have consensus on.
Sounds reasonable.
Under bylaws, number 2, do we have consensus?
Here.
To do what?
Are we agreeing to the recommendations of the WASDA resolution and legislative committee
Okay.
Not pass.
to not pass?
I would say no, because we've got 11 school districts signed on to that, and it goes to local control and unfunded mandates. So I would think we'd want to look at that one more carefully.
Okay. Albert, you're speaking for yourself. What about the rest of the board? Because it's consensus.
I'm a no.
Okay.
We agree
Like,
with that.
Okay, so we will.
this is the same one that we had. These are the same bylaws that were in our
Yes.
study session, correct? Like the changes to the bylaws?
the change to
Oh, no,
the
that's a
bylaw
different one.
is just
Okay.
on 19. It's
Okay.
underlined.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Number 3A, which is an amendment to the proposal for Article 3, which is 3.
And they have no recommendation on that.
And so Article 3 is a recommendation of do not pass. Do we have consensus to agree with that?
And what did we do on 3A?
We didn't do anything because there was no recommendation, so we have to talk about the amendment.
Okay.
This, as I read it, is an effort on WASDA's part to build out the student representative network. And so to create something more robust for our student reps to participate in at, not only at the annual conference, but other times throughout the year.
Correct.
Does this do anything in terms of putting a load on a district, especially a small one, to increase what they are required to do? Or
These are just voluntary opportunities for our student reps to mimic kind of what board members do. So they get to, learn about how the legislature works. They get to learn about local control and these types of things. So they're more than just sort of token positions. They're more.
But they don't get a vote.
Oh, they're not elected positions.
and so is there any cost to the district for any of this stuff?
Only if you chose to already bring, whether you choose to bring your students to WASDA or not, that would be the only cost.
Just up to the district.
Yeah.
And some of the student representative options are actually virtual, so kids don't have to be asked.
So, they're wanting to really just
Build out the network and then include one student rep on the actual WASDA board and committees to the extent possible.
their recommendation is to not pass it.
Did you read the rationale?
Yeah.
Sounds like they think it could be done without an amendment to the bylaws.
Well, I think
It's more suitable for a policy or a procedure, not a bylaw specifically. Is there?
But what they did is in 3A is they gutted it and took out all the extra parts out. So it basically, 3A actually just creates the space for the student reps and student voice.
How do
Tells you
these
to-
students get picked?
And tells you to go to their policy, right?
And then the board can work through policy and that.
How
Students,
are they chosen? Like, how were these two? How did they come about being here? Were they
every
elected?
every district is different.
I'm asking about these two. Were they elected or selected, or how did these two end up?
The high school
Okay,
is elected by the ASB.
the student body,
Their
that student
public
body.
affairs officer
Yeah.
is the representative here.
Right.
And in Lincoln Hill, it was chosen by the principal last spring.
Okay, okay, good to know. Thank you.
So I guess the point is do we,
I can agree with me personally, I would agree with their do not pass recommendation. That would be
what about the amendment though? That really just leaves a placeholder. It strips everything out, all of the extra details, and allows the space for them to create that.
Yeah, they don't have a recommendation there, but like I could be okay with like saying, hey, here's just our specific thing, like our stance that we agree we have them, and you should go to our policy, and then they would create a policy. I think that seems reasonable and to fit what a board would do. So I'm okay with 3A as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about the rest of you?
If it's good for the students, I'm on board,
So we're saying
especially these guys who want to.
passing the amendment and not passing 3. So 3A would be a pass, and 3A would be a do not pass.
So we're saying we have consensus to vote yes on the amendment,
Right.
and then no on the do not, we'll be voting in agreement with the do not pass
Agreeable to everybody.
from 3. Okay. Okay, so moving on. So category 1, which is association operations. And so this is number 4, goals. Comes with a recommendation of a do not pass.
Discuss that a little bit more because that I think went to local control unfunded mandates as well.
The proposed amendment removes the WASDA leads in policy development to promote safe, secure, and respectful learning environments for each and every student, and replaces it with WASDA advocates to preserve local control for its members and opposes any and all legislation that infringes on local control or in an unfunded mandate.
Feel like that's saying that regardless of what the thing is, if it says those magic words, they must vote for it and they don't get to use a lens of common sense or whatever. It kind of ties their hand of reading what it actually says and saying if it has those magic words, you must be for it. That feels weird to me. I would agree to do not pass on that.
Yeah, the committee rationale is the committee voted for a do not pass recommendation because the proposed added language limits the organization's ability to advocate using other member adopted positions and impedes advocacy efforts. The imposed language would make many of the existing positions obsolete or null and void, including legislative priorities. The proposed removal of specific language is about safe, secure, and respectful learning environments which are essential to student learning and success.
I agree.
I could go along with that. So is there a consensus for do not pass that one?
I agree.
Now, I had a question on 5.8 is what was on the worksheet, I don't think matches what their recommendation was. I had a check mark for some reason.
So 5A is a proposed amendment to 5. So if you read 5 first,
Okay.
which is on page 33, it says WASDA advocates to preserve local control for its membership and opposes any and all legislation that infringes on local control or is an unfunded mandate.
Absolutely.
The reasoning behind the do not pass for number 5 is that the committee, again, voted to do not pass recommendation because the proposed language limits the organization's ability to advocate using other member adopted positions and impedes advocacy efforts. There was a proposed amendment to this, which changes the language originally written to WASDA advocates to preserve local control for its membership and opposes legislation that infringes on local control or unfunded mandates,
I think that's
instead of using the word any and all.
And what was their recommendation on the amendment?
There is, do not pass.
I think that modified version sounds pretty good.
Which,
The modified version, the what you just
the
read.
amendment?
Yeah, take out the any and all, but still leave in the wanting local control and so on.
No unfunded mandate.
Yeah, those
The
are-
any and all is kind of redundant.
yeah, well, right, but
I mean,
I feel like it still ties people's hands.
it says that you, you have to vote for those regardless of what the item is, or if it conflicts with other statements, it says that you have to agree with those based on that. And it makes it so you can't,
Like every
you can't put a common sense to that, because if it says those magic keywords, you're required to
What
vote
are,
yes
what are
for
the
those.
magic keywords?
Local
Unfunded mandate.
control and unfunded mandate.
yeah, well then, but what position can be taken on those issues?
So I think that you would, if it makes sense, then you can vote for those and advocate for those, but if it's something that would be detrimental to the safety or the whatever to the students, then you would be able to vote no. But if you have this, if it's detrimental to safety or whatever, you still wouldn't be able to vote no, because you're saying I must vote yes to those. That's how I read these to say. And it appears that's how WASDA reads those to say as well, based on their recommendations.
They need to get the message that we don't want unfunded mandates.
Right, exactly.
So-
But we know that WASDA knows that we don't want unfunded mandates.
Well, how do we
But
vote
the-
for that?
So where is that
They-
in WASDA policies otherwise?
So sometimes there are instances where unfunded mandates are tied to things that we need
No,
to function.
absolutely, I'm not in favor of that at all. If they don't pay for it, we're not paying for it. Absolutely not.
And actually, this is on that topic.
I'm a big, hard no. And I want local control, Charlotte. Do you not want local control? I think we
I
talked about
feel like
this.
we have local
Okay.
control, so this is not the time for that.
I don't feel that way.
So we're talking about 5 right now.
And where else in the policies throughout these issues, are these issues covered that WASDA is for?
Is it a permanent position of theirs or
It's already in the permanent position, so it's not in this handbook, but it's in all of their paperwork in their binder.
So both unfunded mandates and local control, there's a overall position on those.
Yes.
That would be
Against it?
our concerns.
Against it.
Yeah.
Same for WASDA, AWSP, and WASBO. We're all in alignment of no unfunded mandates.
Absolutely
As
not.
long as that's their overall policy, then, okay. Their recommendation was do not pass on 5, and then they said do not pass the amendment as well.
Correct.
This is a big deal, so it's important.
Well, based
Yeah.
on
We're clear.
our understanding of what we just said about this is long-term policy of WASDA to be as a position on those things that are not excessively restrictive, but appropriate to be overall against unfunded mandates and for local control. So based on that understanding,
And I'm still trying to figure out why Charlotte doesn't want local control. Can you articulate that?
I'm not sure why we're having this conversation right now, and it's not that I am saying that I don't want local control.
Okay, well, whatever, I don't know.
So I don't like the term local control because you believe local control is one thing, I believe local control is something else.
Well, what do you believe it is?
And
depends
it
how you
doesn't
define
matter
it.
what I believe.
Okay, well, I'm a hard no. I want all local control.
And then the rest
And
of
I
us
want
are-
no unfunded mandates. I brought that up last March and you didn't bother to read it, but
Okay,
here we
okay.
are again.
All right, let's stay on 5 and 5A here. So we hear you want to know on 5. I think the rest of us are okay with the do not pass.
I am okay with the do not.
Yeah.
As well.
and based on my understanding of this is already was the positions, that's a key thing, so we don't need this in addition to
But we're
that.
actually doing the bylaws here, so it's important that, okay. So we're going with a do not pass on 5, and then on the amendment, are we taking their recommendation for a do not pass?
I agree.
5A? Okay. Is that everybody's feelings on that? So 5A and 5 both are do not pass then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So number 6 is amendment proposal in regards to the WASDA equity statement.
You know, I have one other question. When would a good time to talk to you about that be?
Okay.
Or is that, I
You
mean,
can
I'm
do that
just
after the
wondering,
meeting.
because I'd love to do that.
We are talking
Okay.
about General
Don't-
Assembly right now.
Don't
so
scold
we
me,
need-
Charlotte.
Okay,
Thank you.
come on. Let's stay on task here. We've got a lot of things to get through and 3 hours to do it. Okay, we're down to number 6, is that it?
Correct.
I agree with their recommendation. It is the equity statement. I don't know why you would take those words out of the equity statement. It doesn't,
So who proposed that and what was their rationale for it?
A bunch of districts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it says the original position suggests we have discriminatory practices and prejudices.
prejudice.
Thank you. In our education system, so we remove some language and replace it with personal characteristics.
Which interestingly is not the wording, it's circumstances, so that might be one reason for the do not pass, because there's an inconsistency.
Mm-hmm. And they believe that it's not an appropriate substitution for the existing language.
So do we have consensus that to take their recommendation to do not pass number 6? Okay. Check that off.
So category 2, capital facilities and school construction. This one has a due pass recommendation from the resolutions committee. It adds that WASDA believes that safe and healthy schools that support high quality teaching and learning are foundational to basic education. Financing school facilities is a partnership between the state and local districts. The state's fiduciary responsibility must be adequate to support mandated initiatives.
I agree. I think this goes to your unfunded mandates. That's that healthy buildings thing, and telling them that if you want us to make all these changes to our buildings, you need to provide us funding for that. So I agree with the pass on that.
Okay. Consensus on 7.
know.
All right. 8A. They have no recommendation on that.
It is, there's an amendment to an amendment.
So which one do you want to tackle first?
So let's jump to 8 first. So the language.
These feel backwards to me, the way they have them numbered, like on the pages. I'm like,
Right.
I was
Yeah,
trying to
but-
read through it, and I was like, this hurts my brain. Like, why is this one first?
8A should go after 8.
I'm just trying to match the squares.
Yeah. I was like, why? What's happening? 8A should go after 8. Like, what's going on?
Well, that's not just me.
Yeah.
So this does come with, this is climate impact mitigation assistance, and this does come with a due pass from the legislative committee. And so basically it is striking out, it says funding to help districts switch from petroleum-powered vehicle fleets to, and it has stricken out electric to replace it with zero-emission vehicle fleets. Informed by environmental impact studies, including vehicles related infrastructure and management services and workforce development for drivers, mechanics, and other support personnel. It also removes, it says funding to help districts replace petroleum or natural gas-based building heating and cooking systems with electric versions.
I'm completely against that, just so you know.
Technical support for these projects in the form of state-funded consulting assistance in transitioning to zero-emission vehicles, green building practices, energy efficiency, and climate resiliency operations.
So, Betsy, to the point, the WASDA's position, so legislature has said, like, we have to go to zero emission vehicles by such and such
Right.
date and all
But we
this.
don't have to agree, do we?
We don't,
This is
it does,
the
we don't
point.
get to agree or disagree.
Okay.
Legislature says that we have to do that,
Oh,
just
right.
like our clean buildings.
Okay.
What these are saying is, we're telling them, if you're telling us we have to do this, we need you to help us fund it.
Okay, or fund it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this
Well,
is
that's
the,
okay,
this
I'm
is the,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm
this is
sorry.
the,
I
no,
should've had
I'm just,
coffee.
yeah, I'm just trying to, so this is the funding mechanism of
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
you've already said we have to do this,
Awesome.
which, okay,
You're a good
sure,
teacher.
yeah,
Important.
sure, maybe yes or no. But if you're telling us we have to do this by 2035 or whatever that date is,
Perfect, yeah,
we need you to give us the money to do that because
Okay.
we don't have the resources.
perfect. I
So-
think that's a great position.
And this is adding, because I think before it just talked about the actual vehicles themselves. This talks about the infrastructure, the training, and
Because
this
it looks
stuff.
expensive.
Very,
Like, are you
very
kidding me?
expensive.
Natural gas is so much more efficient.
Yeah, so I think that this piece is just like, hey, we want the funding not only for the actual bus itself, but like if I have to put in charging stations and I have to train my mechanics how to
I
work
just
on
don't
those
see that
different.
ever happening, but it's good that we have the
Yeah,
caveat.
so I think that's, for me, this is I agree with the pass.
Yeah.
Because that's how I read that. And Charlotte, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is exactly that. And the difference between the First Amendment and the Second Amendment is that they talk about, they make reference to electric or renewable, as an example, geothermal versions as well.
Mhm.
And it also takes out the informed by environmental impact studies.
Mm.
More flexibility with the amendment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, okay,
It just broadens it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be electric. Could be geothermal or.
Correct.
I like broadening the options,
Mm-hmm.
especially because some of those. may be
Well, and
better.
And there's so many, yeah.
And the reason that they're striking the environmental impact study piece is additional environmental impact studies are not necessary to further justify conversions to zero emissions fleets. So, why would we spend money on that when we could be spending the money on actually doing the updates? Is essentially what they're asking.
Hearing we have consensus on 8 as they pass.
Yes.
8A.
Yeah, 8A is the better version of 8.
I think that you have to approve one and then you can
Yeah,
choose to
so
approve the next
we
amendment.
approve-
So do we agree?
I agree.
With
I agree
both
with
of
both
them.
of those.
Now we approve the
Personal.
amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. To broaden it.
So there are a lot of these that have a amendment to
45 and you gotta go back to the.
Yes. So just so you
We
know.
consider them together. Since
Well, and that's why I've been we're talking through them together. We start with the initial, which is 9. And it comes with a due pass. And trying to see where is, okay, so it says WASDA shall initiate and or support legislation that establishes an ongoing, sustainable, and reliable source and system of funding for safe, healthy, and contemporary school buildings. To achieve this level of funding, the legislature should consider, and the parts that are changed is develop a new school construction funding model that accounts for the total project cost, including, but not
Property.
limiting to, property acquisition, design and engineering fees, permitting, life cycle cost analysis, and building commissioning.
I like the add-in of permitting and stuff like that. That's gotten crazy expensive these days.
And then it also adds any unclaimed school construction assistance program funding at the end of the fiscal year shall not be reallocated.
Oh, so if you save money, you get to keep it and use it on
That's
other
way better than
other
previous,
construction.
isn't it?
process.
If you didn't spend it, you didn't get it back. It's back on.
I faced that in my college department where you spend it, you lose it, and the incentive to burn money.
Yeah, exactly. I like to work like that.
Yeah, I like the
I
idea
can
of
burn some money.
changing the funding formula. I mean, we all know that their formula is definitely
Are
older, and it's not reasonable. So I like the idea of pushing for an updated funding formula that equates the entire process of building, not just the wooden nails that it takes to put into the building. I appreciate broadening that spectrum. And again, if you save money in the process, you're not punishing yourself by having to give money back. You get to use that for maybe other capital projects that you could.
Something for the kids, or it has to be capital projects.
It would have to be capital projects, I believe.
And you can do maintenance with that money too, I suspect.
You sure can.
So we have consensus on 9 as a pass.
So, yes.
9 and 9A, actually.
So, 9A adds reimbursement for the sales tax receipts and zero tax on native reservations for all construction projects.
If you're on native land,
Yes, because like the Yakima
yeah.
reservation, they're required to pay tax for any construction.
I'm all for helping our people who were here first.
Two others build their own schools. I understand.
So we have consensus on 9 and 9A as a
Yes.
pass.
Mhm.
51 and 48.
So 10 and 10A. And I believe this one is similar in the sense that they added the zero tax on native reservation for construction projects between the two. And then the actual, so this added providing flexibility for school districts that have a voter-approved capital levy to issue non-voted bonds for the purpose of constructing new buildings.
Non-voting bonds, what's that?
So the fire
Leftover money.
department, the fire department can do that. They can do non-voter bonds. Like that's how they built that training facility, like North County did. Is they
More like a levy?
I mean, it's a bond, but they didn't get voter approval on it.
Oh.
They had sort of like a cap, and they didn't have to go out for voter approval.
So there's a certain level that doesn't require the voting to be approved
Mhm.
now.
You have to have a voter-approved capital levy
Yes, in
to
order
be able to do that.
So like we currently wouldn't qualify because we don't have a capital levy currently passed. We have
And I can
Levy?
see where that might be helpful if, say, we went out for a levy, we got the capital levy to build the building, and say something happened and it took us longer to build the building, and during that time, maybe inflation hits and things end up costing more, so this would be an avenue for us to be able to still complete the construction and,
It's not recommended as the avenue to build a building, however.
no.
right, and I don't think that we're I don't think they're
Yeah.
necessarily advocating for that. But I think there's the biggest struggle is with our small districts. Not so much, because we're considered a mid-sized district, but small districts have troubles getting levies and bonds passed because of their small population.
Some of those districts have, their schools are in significant disrepair and they can't pass, and their buildings are no longer safe, and so they need an avenue to maybe try to. Not a supermajority would be so great.
So how do we feel about 10 and 10A?
I
Pass.
Thumbs up.
I think it's good.
Consensus pass.
Back to 48, yeah.
And so now we have 11 and 11A. So on some of these, you will see this consistently throughout the packet. I think WASDA and many of us that have been participating in advocacy work have decided that using the term amply fund is a little more powerful in language versus just funding.
Yeah. I agree.
That's like saying, here's $20 for your month of groceries.
Yeah.
Well, we funded you.
Mhm. Yeah, don't just fund education, but amply fund education. So that is the change in 11.
And 11A, it looks like.
And
that's what
11A,
They added.
they added also the zero
And
tax.
Zero tax.
Yeah.
I say thumbs up.
Okay, have consensus to pass both 11 and 11A.
Okay.
Buildings.
So, and this is a new proposal, and it does come with a legislative committee recommendation to do pass. And this is in regards to the Clean Buildings Act compliance that we have been mandated to do. To your discussion point, Betsy, this is about holding the legislature accountable for an unfunded mandate.
Right on. Can I ask a question? I understand that for some money we took, or I don't know, but for some reason, the teachers don't get their refrigerators in their rooms anymore, and I think that they're not very happy. I think that is not very, I think the teachers should get their refrigerators, because it would look like an energy savings thing or something, but if I was in a room all day, I would not want to have a community refrigerator, so if this has something to do with that, I'm just wondering.
I don't think so.
No.
We're
Okay.
just on clean buildings. And that has the
Oh,
potential to
because it
cost
was
a
like
lot
some
more.
kind of, you get a discount if you take away their their little refrigerators. Anyway, just saying.
It's a tough act to meet.
So this clean building is not making them undirty, but it's probably.
It's about clean energy
Yeah.
and making them energy efficient to a certain level of efficiency by
So
a certain
this
time
was
frame.
referred to in some of the other amendments that we already talked about, but if you read their rationale, it says that they, like, the way that this is being pushed and the speed with which it's coming, they feel like this needs extra advocacy. So on top of the other amendments and changes that they're putting, they think they need this one also.
And again, this is another unfunded mandate situation.
Mhm.
That's what it's. This
There
proposal
is
about.
some.
There's some funding.
But
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
nearly
Yeah.
enough.
But
Yeah.
adequate funding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ample.
Well, how about
Ample funding.
How about full funding?
Yes, so this is like, hey, we want you to know that this is such a big deal that not only are we adding amendments in other portions, we're creating a whole new section just about that to let you know how important it is.
Is ample ambiguous? Should
Actually,
it be more
actually,
specific?
no, the wording is actually fully funded.
Fully
Yeah.
funded.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good, because who decides what's,
Well, when the state fully funds something, they pay about 80% of it.
oh, yeah, that's like, 1 inch fencing is only 5/8 inch. And fence board, anyway.
So how do we feel about 12?
Pass.
It's passed.
Consensus there.
So funding and allocations.
How do you define ample? Is there one? I don't know. Ample funding for high poverty schools.
Well, this is telling WASDA to advocate,
Mm,
and then the legislature can figure out
I
how
see,
much they
that's
really
good.
need.
Sure.
Saying they're not doing their job.
So this is North Seattle. And so it goes from fully to ample. General and uniform is new.
How do you put a number based upon student need? How much money? Who?
So if you can, sometimes when there's a big edit or amendment, sometimes it's easier to go down and look at the committee's rationale as to why they're saying do not pass.
Mhm.
And in this case, this says the committee voted for a do not pass because they believe the current position is stronger in that the supporting, not supplanting language is important to retain, which I will say I absolutely agree because it happens more times than not. They'll say, oh, we're going to fund special ed, but we're taking money from over here and
They're pretty
putting it over
clever.
here.
That's good you know that.
So
Thank you.
supporting, not supplanting is definitely language I feel is necessary in this proposal. So I'm in agreement that it's a do not
A
pass.
question on the page 62 proposed amendments paragraph, there's a strikeout. What was it, or was that strikeout from, because it's not in the correct position?
Oh, the strikeout is in the current position.
Okay.
So the underlined is added language,
Yeah.
and the strikeout is existing language.
so they're saying
I
that
see that, yeah.
they're saying that they don't want to add the underline, they want to stick with the stuff
Yeah,
that's
okay,
struck through.
I got it. You're right.
Well, it looks to me like they're striking, the state role begins with fully funding basic education it is the role of the state government to make ample provision.
And the recommendation is don't
Don't
pass.
change it, don't
Yeah.
change the
Yeah,
word.
don't change it.
Same, not original wording.
So are we in consensus to do not pass 13?
That makes sense.
Definition of ample, there you go, that's what you're looking for, right?
I bet we all believe that's something else.
That was,
Considerably more than just adequate.
Mm.
Well, it says WASDA believes that the word ample in Article 9, Section 1 of the Washington State Constitution means fully, sufficient, and considerably more than just adequate.
Oh, so
Consistent with the definition asserted by the Washington Supreme Court.
So I actually appreciate the fact that they took their own words out of the Constitution and they're putting that in instead of like fully funded and like this is more than fully because it's fully sufficient and like I genuinely appreciate that we said let's use a word that you've already, because that was the whole thing with McCleary. It was fully funded, and then the state got to define fully funded. So if we take,
and it was a one-time thing.
Yeah. So if we take that out and we use their own definition that they've already defined it as more than what they've currently got, I think that's fairly clever, and I enjoy that.
So obviously, this new position is a due pass, and it is basically seeking a shared understanding of the definition of the word ample.
I like that. Crafty.
And it's submitted by the legislative committee, so I appreciate their work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we have consensus on 14 to pass.
Okay.
And number 15 is an amendment. And this comes from Mount Vernon School District.
Trying to remove some of the strings that come with state.
Yes, so they're adding, besides providing ample, flexible, and equitable funding for programs and services for each student who is economically disadvantaged to close achievement and opportunity gaps.
Is Mount Vernon a high poverty district?
Yes.
Yes.
Most likely.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Some districts find that they actually have a hard time spending some of their monies from the state because they are overly restrictive, and that's a real disappointment in
Who's overly
the
restricted?
state.
Oh, well, that's too
Or the
bad.
Yeah, so they're wanting them to alleviate some of the need for collecting that income data from families, because there are a lot of families that don't want to, like, I know of families that would qualify for reduced
Free and
or
reduced lunch.
sports pay to play and stuff like that, and instead, like, they don't want to apply for that, so they just don't have their children play sports, which is sad to me. So I think that's like reducing.
Well,
to
and
get
there's
that
some
inform-
cultural things there
Yeah.
as well.
Working so you don't have to get as much information from families to provide that, I think is positive. I agree with pass.
Pass? Okay. Consensus to pass.
Ooh, cola. Who doesn't love a cola?
So this is an amended proposal. And it talks about substitute staffing need to support student learning and continue daily operations. So basically, this is wanting, again, ample and equitable funding for salaries, benefits, pension programs for minimum appropriate staff levels for following necessary functions for all districts.
So does this include a COLA for pensions?
It says the legislation should create and maintain a process for statewide biannual review of and recommendations regarding statewide staffing salaries, benefits, pension allocations, regionalization needs, and cost of living adjustments, which is your IBP/COLA.
Yeah, well, because California pension I have, and I just got a notice from them that I finally got down to the 85% level.
Oh.
Therefore, they're bumping in a little bit because of this kind of provision.
Oh.
But it's on a year-by-year basis if it's available. Yeah, so it's similar. I've been
also
watching that.
There's also a little piece in here about providing funding for substitute costs for individuals that are out on PFMLA, which again leads into that unfunded mandate.
Correct.
With PFM, what's that?
Paid family medical leave. So if they go out on paid family medical leave, we're still paying them, but
Now we also have to pay.
now we need to pay for their substitute too, so it's extra costs.
Triple whammy.
So the reason for paid family medical leave got expanded, I assume, and that's another mandate that we're asking for funding for.
And specifically for the cost of substitutes for individuals that are out on PFMLA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the main cost of that family leave thing is the substitutes.
Mhm.
That's already the person on leave.
So are we in agreement on this?
Yep, consensus to pass.
Okay. 17, class size reduction funding. This comes with a due pass. This is an amendment, and again, this is a language change, so it's changing fully fund to amply fund, and that is the only change.
I think you mentioned there was a Supreme Court decision on the word amply.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you review that more, because that's significant, I think. So what was that decision about, and what was the context of that affects what we're thinking about here?
So if you go back into that page, it tells you, so it's in the Constitution, like
The state constitution.
the state constitution defines it, and then the Supreme Court held up that is the definition of ample.
So it was already there.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're just, instead of using fully, which hindsight we let the state define after McCleary, we're changing it to amply, which they've already defined somewhere else as more than fully.
Or really
I'm sorry?
Fully.
fully. Or really fully.
Yes, yes.
And that did, in all fairness, come out of litigation, right?
Yes.
It's probably not the best place to be making
Yeah.
definitions.
Yes, true.
So we have consensus on 17.
Pass, yes.
So the next one has an amendment to an amendment. So you have 18 and 18A,
Oh.
which is your fiscal notes and unfunded mandates, which comes from the legislative committee with a due pass. And it says WASDA shall advocate for and/or pursue litigation against the state when mandates are not fully funded.
That actually helps because that was the whole part of the thing is like who's gonna sue the state for the funding for McCleary, right? Like that was the problem is you had to have a district that was willing
And
to
to
step up and do that, and they didn't have the money to do it. So if
Mhm.
WASDA has the teeth to do that on their behalf, that's a big change.
Well, and that would, I'm assuming, stall any unfunded mandate during litigation.
Right.
Mhm.
So at the very least, you could argue it in multiple ways, right? Interesting. Okay.
Didn't 7 districts have to get together? to pay?
Yes,
Mhm.
and like outside advocacy groups for funding it and stuff like that. I mean, that was a big orchestration to get that taken care of.
Another thing that's really good, I don't know if you guys noticed or if you care, but WASDA got changed so that it's no longer a weighted vote. So when we all get one vote.
Yeah, Seattle doesn't.
Yeah, they're not gonna rule the roost anymore. Party's over.
Outnumber everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm for that.
So 18A adds, supports requiring that the legislature only progress K-12 legislation out of committee for which an estimated fiscal impact has been determined, including an estimate of representative local cost of compliance fiscal notes from the representative districts around the state for any proposed state laws or administrative rules that would impact educational programs and services.
Which you would need to trigger litigation, right?
Yeah, you'd have to have a cost. You would have to say that you would have to know what it costs before you could say it was unfunded. And that's why I think that's how they've been getting around these unfunded mandates is they're just not putting a cost on it. They're just saying, this doesn't cost you anything. Do this for free, even though
There's a
it,
competitive grant.
you know what I mean? Like,
So I'm for 18, but I'm not for 18A, and here's my rationale for why. As much as I appreciate the intent of what they're trying to do, it also hinders because it's basically saying that bills cannot move
71.
without that fiscal note.
It does say that they can't send it forward until they have a dollar amount associated with it.
Correct.
How shouldn't they?
So that means any legislation,
Well,
if there is a fiscal piece to it. Nothing.
It's only
can-
K-12 legislation.
And
Only K-12. That's all of our legislation.
No, I understand. Like,
Ours.
yeah, but I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
agreed.
I guess I can see your argument, but if there's truly no cost to
I'm
it,
just,
then it should
I'm just
be-
saying that in a
Everything
short,
costs money.
in a short, for example, in a short session, if you've got a bill and you're trying to move it and get it in front of the other house,
you would have to do the legwork up front. Like,
you
just
wouldn't
to
have,
be more
you wouldn't
prepared.
have, you would have to be more prepared in order to move that
Yeah. But also,
forward.
I agree, and also,
I think that we should, there should always be a fiscal note, but if you're having to wait for that fiscal note and you're trying to get something done in a short session, that really slows the process.
I, again, should be prepared. And also, it would seem like if that obstacle was not there, it would be a way to sneak such through. Well, there's not time to do the fiscal, therefore pass it. And I would say, I would rather not have that happen.
I think to the point, if you don't have the dollar amount attached to it, sorry, I've been sitting in a car for like 4 hours today. If you don't have a dollar amount attached to it, to Dr. Rumbaugh's point, how do you call it an unfunded mandate that you could potentially legislate against?
Well, we would show that you could come back and say, okay, this is what it costs, and you didn't give us money for it.
what if during, not to go down a rabbit hole, but what if during the process of litigation, costs go up drastically like we saw in 2020, 2021 in the housing market? That's not a, maybe that's not a part
Remember
of this
Andrew,
argument.
something about an inflation escalator thing that relates to all of this, that seems like there should be.
I mean, I see your point, Charlotte. You're stalling a lot of legislation. It's not like they're fast anyway, but I don't know. I guess I could be persuaded.
Well, like I said, I am all for 18 because that really, gives WASDA the ability to go after unfunded mandates on our behalf. But at the same time, I feel like this is almost too restrictive in trying to get legislation, because I've seen where legislation has gone through committee to the floor to the other house, and in the process, the fiscal note has caught up with it all. So before it comes to a final vote of, and final approval, the fiscal note does show up. It's just that if we're saying that it can't go anywhere.
This is saying that it can't move at all, right?
Yeah,
Move out of committee.
it can't go out of committee, it can't, no one's eyes gets on it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do we consider basic ed not being fully funded as an unfunded mandate? Because I think about 19, not to get ahead, but I wonder if, like what happened with McCleary, if that could not happen if there wasn't a fiscal note attached. And that would be really hard to do.
Mhm.
to try to determine, well, what is the cost of basic education as an aggregate, and you need that number to file the suit. So I think it could play both ways, right?
Mhm.
But the money has to follow the kids, right?
I mean, to my point, I think that I see your argument, and I think that if it were worded better that the fiscal note is added before it's a final vote, you know what I mean? Like, I think that would probably be
Mhm.
more of what, like, it would still get to their point, but you wouldn't stall all progress on it.
Right.
So I could see your argument there of,
And that's kind of what
you're not even
yeah.
you're not even letting the
not
conversation happen
happen.
while the other work is being done. Like,
yeah, you're
I
not
can see your
you're
point.
not being able to lay any groundwork.
And there's no live amendments any longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can agree with do not pass. I could be persuaded.
And with your current position, it does require full funding for all costs, but it doesn't say anything about identifying what that will be before passage.
And the impact of those, the cost.
Yeah, so
That's a difference too.
but what in that keeps them from passing something without having a dollar amount? So it seemed like before getting it, it should be, information should be available to the committee. I mean, that would be the appropriate place to have the dollar amount figured out, because that should be part of the committee's discussion. And so, but if the way it is now, it could go all the way to be passed, good in law, without a dollar amount attached, even though they're obligated to pay whatever that amount is. It doesn't seem right.
Sounds like we don't have enough information.
Is there an abstain?
We could abstain
just not vote
from
on
the, we could vote for the initial and not take a vote on the amendment. The amendment to the amendment.
Can we amend that? No.
More.
Okay, so we have consensus on passing 18,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just going to not vote or during General Assembly, if you hear a valid argument that you think might sway us one way or the other, we'll leave it up to you to vote.
During the discussion, maybe you can throw in the inflation escalator concept that is part of funding, especially for things that take a bunch of years.
Yes.
So we'll leave 18A up to you.
Okay.
19.
Full funding of basic education.
That would be great.
So,
That
this comes with a due pass, and what it's adding is material supplies, operating costs shall be included in the funding of basic education. So
Yes,
the MSOCs that we talked about last session.
That
and how
go
they-
up every freaking month.
And how they supplemented
Yeah.
MSOC money,
Yes.
and yeah, so.
Agreed.
19 was a pass. Everyone? 20.
And this also is very specific to MSOC funding, and it says do pass from the legislative committee. So these enhancements may come via regular increases recognizing inflationary costs with a required review by OSPI every 4 years for actual costs as submitted by school districts, or through the state becoming the responsible payee for operating costs such as, but not limited to, utilities, and insurance costs. Additionally, WASDA supports a sales tax break for MSOC costs for school districts.
I think it's crazy that we pay sales tax. Like,
I
other
know.
state entities don't pay sales
Well,
tax.
nonprofits can get a waiver. Why can't school
Yeah, like, I don't
districts?
understand why we pay sales tax. I've never understood why we pay
Let's just
sales
stop
tax.
doing it.
Sure.
See how they like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree.
In California, it was the same, and I wondered why.
Yeah.
It would be nice, because that was a
Yeah,
impacting my budget.
We don't wanna do that anymore.
yeah. I would also love it if they started paying our utility bills. You know, those are outrageous.
Yeah,
I've seen the sales tax
absolutely.
in the high school.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
It's the lottery. We get all that money
Yeah,
from
we
the
put
lottery.
it back to
sure,
the city.
sure, yeah.
Well, I think maybe the idea is that in some places, the school district is the largest employer, so we're helping feed the community through our sales tax that we expense, so it's the
But
trickle
then
down
they don't
effect.
get to keep the sales tax either, right? Like,
Yeah.
it goes back to the state. Like, it just feels silly.
And the city gets part of it.
Yeah,
A little bit, yeah, I guess. But I don't know.
I'm just, I am not for it, but I'm just saying that it's, I think that's probably the thought process behind some of it is.
Well, if we didn't agree on this one, Ruth would.
Poke us in the eye. Track us down. Track us down to poke us
She
in
would
the eye.
question our sanity.
So that's a pass, right?
I'm afraid to go to work tomorrow if we don't.
So 21 is on African American Study Work Group, and it's a due pass. And this was submitted by Spokane and Shoreline School Districts. This is a new proposal. There was a work group that came out with a report to put together next steps for the for inclusionary work around adding to social studies curriculum. And so this is just emphasizing the fact that we spent the money on a work group to do this work. We should be implementing the work that was recommended from the work group.
Consensus to pass?
Otherwise, why did we bother to do the work?
So this mandates new position in each district or what?
This would say we need to prioritize funding to implement with the work group.
And the work group wants us to do what was it? To establish a new position in each district on this topic?
What page is that?
76, the second paragraph.
So, yeah, 75 and 6.
It says, requires districts to screen all K-2 students for indicators of or areas of weakness associated with dyslexia and to provide, no, sorry, that's the wrong one.
This is similar to STI, since time immemorial.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a work group together to include Native people's studies and social studies curriculum.
Is it gonna cost money?
No, this is saying we want the legislature to prioritize money for this if we're going to do what the work group
Yeah,
says.
if we've already done a work group on it, we need to
Have the state pay for it.
do, well, the work group's already been done.
Right. They
But
implement
the state needs to implement or move forward with what,
funding to implement.
And the funding for
You
it.
mentioned Native Americans? I think you said Native Americans?
Yeah, this is similar to STI.
Okay, so
Yeah.
similar to that, there's already that for that population.
mhm.
Do we have any other special population focused things besides that and potentially this?
Norwegians.
Not that one.
I'm sorry. So 21 is a consensus to pass.
Well, of course,
Yes.
in terms of prioritizing, so that this is the bump it above a lot of other stuff and
I think it's just to say, hey, we know you did this work group. We want you to move forward. But in the big scheme of it, who knows where the priority is? It's
Or
just,
what other districts will say.
yeah, and so basically it's just saying, if you
Why
have
did
an
you-
opportunity to elevate it, please elevate it.
Yeah, like you did all of this work, you spent all this money on this work group and this study, like let's go ahead
We
and.
don't want you to forget you spent that money.
Yeah, like,
on
let's
this
go
work.
ahead and.
Is this
and
cutting in,
do-
is this cutting into like reading, writing, and?
No.
This is not something else they have to learn. I mean, okay.
I don't.
Oh, bless you for telling me.
Yeah, it's right here.
I love you for that, man. I just gotta find her. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. You good on consensus?
Don't play the old lady card. Okay, where is it?
It's.
Go for it. Yeah, 22.
That was
Literacy,
mismannered, thank
this is a
you.
due pass.
I had to read the book.
This is also a new proposal. It says, WASDA shall initiate and/or support legislation that would provide ample and equitable funding for districts to adopt and implement evidence-based literacy acquisition practices, curriculum, screening, and professional development across all grades.
The recommendation was to pass.
Seems reasonable.
Consensus on that?
Yep.
All right.
That's the one about dyslexia that I was reading. I was on the right.
Is it gone, sister?
Yes, you're good.
23 is mental health supports and counseling access. This is also a new position. So it's basically asking us to initiate and/or support legislation that would provide ample and equitable funding for on-site mental health counseling and school mental health therapy services, staff professional development, and peer support education to be prepared and able to respond to student mental health needs, issues, and crises. And so just to kind of touch on that a little bit, there isn't a lot of that funding in our system, and we get funding from the both counties to help support
That would be
that.
Does
valuable.
Island County provide us funding? Nice.
So
But we have counselors at every school, yes.
Yeah, we have school counselors.
Is that sort of,
But their
we
guidance
don't-
counselors are not mental
they'll
health.
have mental health.
so did we have to hire somebody else?
So we have contracts with different entities that help provide those supports. This is basically saying this needs to be a priority for
It
our
does,
students.
yeah, that's good. Amen.
So what training and counseling or of this mental health variety do the counselors have? Is there a minimum for that?
A minimum, but their primary focus is guidance counseling, and
Are you
support.
on track for graduation?
Right, navigating sort of the typical adolescent issues of high school, but they're not trained mental health counselors or therapists, which interestingly, families sometimes don't know the distinction because of the word counselor.
Yeah.
So this would ensure the state prioritizes funding for those individuals in addition to our.
And we have some retainer or contractor or to fill in as needed.
Yeah, correct. And those are
Probably
partially.
referred by the school counselor.
What's that?
Probably referred, the school counselor then refer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So consensus on 23.
Man, Shoreline's been busy. They submitted a lot of these.
Yeah, Sarah has been very busy.
Yeah. I see Shoreline up there a lot.
Washington.
So this is also a new proposal. It's called tax revenue for schools. It says WASDA shall initiate and/or support legislation that ensures that new state revenue earmarked for education will be additive to and cannot be used to supplement existing funding.
You can't rob from Peter to pay Paul. You can't pull money from over here and say, "Great news, we gave you money."
Yes.
That was an issue of one.
I agree. I feel like that's a good idea.
Consensus to pass. Yeah, passes, let's not pass something now.
So number 25 is unfunded mandates. This has a do not pass recommendation. It says WASDA will not support any legislation that creates an unfunded mandate. The
Seems kind of
rationale,
repetitive, but it is important.
the rationale on the do not pass is the legislative committee voted to do not pass because members had concerns that the proposal was duplicative with the existing fiscal notes and unfunded mandates legislation position and/or created limitations for advocacy when other member-adopted positions were relevant.
This is a little bit of a reflection of many districts having the same interests and putting proposals together that then get mixed up and
Yes.
conflated.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that we've seen in enough of the other language that like unfunded mandates are highlighted everywhere else
Else.
throughout there. I'm unsure that we
We
need
really
to
need
be
this one.
repetitive
Yeah.
and it is restrictive.
The others also have more language,
Mhm.
and more of a description. This is very short.
Yes.
And also, the proposal does not support any legislation. And all the other things where we've seen unfunded mandates over and over and over again, does that we not do those things that we talk about, unfunded mandates? Does that cover all the bases? Or do we need a generic one?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of the unfunded mandate language and many of these other proposals that we don't really need one that just specifically says this.
And I think that that is fairly vague to Dr. Rumbaugh's point, and like the other ones are more specific, and I think the more specific language is probably in our favor than putting a vague statement out there that gives somebody else the opportunity to define something for us again. Would be my thought.
I hope Olympia would get the message.
You know, it would be interesting. Maybe we could do some work on this next year and put a proposal together defining unfunded mandates.
Like the
Like
the
ample.
ample. Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be terrible.
So are we in consensus to do not pass?
Yes.
Yes.
We are on to governance, category 4. We are at 6:15. President Schreiber, do we want to take a bio break before we move on to category 4?
Yes,
Consensus?
please. Yes, please.
Okay. Alvin, do you want-
Beverage.
Okay.
Use the restroom and stuff. I drove here from Federal
You're back on.
Okay, so we are moving on to category 4, which is governance, and accountability to the community is number 26. And this is a do not pass recommendation from the resolutions committee. And the amendment was strictly to add an adoption of core instructional materials. And the rationale about the do not pass is the committee voted to do not pass recommendation because the proposed language is redundant given existing law and is duplicative to content in other member adopted positions.
It's already required by law.
Mm-hmm.
How can they be against accountability to the community? There's
Well,
only
they're
one-
not.
I'm kidding.
They're not, they're just saying, we already
There's
are.
only one district that signed on to that.
Yeah.
So.
Are we in agreement for a do not pass?
Do not pass?
I agree.
Okay.
Could be that.
Okay.
Down in
26
the
is do not pass.
I'm sorry, 10.
27, accountability to community and fiscal responsibility. This is a do pass from Mount Vernon School District. This is a consolidation of our proposals. So this is the first time we've seen this, where everything so far has either been new or an amendment. This is actually taking a couple of positions and consolidating them into one. So if you look at towards the bottom of the page, that's the clean consolidated position. And it's called accountability to community, and it says WASDA believes that the districts should be accountable to their communities and students. District level decisions regarding accountability should be authorized and monitored by local school boards in multiple areas such as continuous improvement in student learning, closing achievement and opportunity gaps, and attainment of learning goals, progress regularly reported to the public, responsible for fiscal stewardship to equitably okay.
You get it.
You just said it.
Yeah.
That's wordy.
Yes, provide a high quality education for all students and then the safety of all students and staff.
So basically, they're just saying, like, instead of two separate ones, let's squish them together and make one.
Basically.
I'm down for squishing.
Are we on consensus on 27 then?
Pass. Okay, 27 to pass.
Okay, so 28 is addressing achievement and opportunity gaps, and this is a do not pass. The only part of this that is amended is the addition.
So they're adding race and equity.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to add the
And-
words race and.
And the committee's rationale for a do not pass is committee considered the current language of comprehensive equity policy to be inclusive of many different factors, including race. Therefore, the additional language was determined to be redundant given the existing position language and other existing positions that relate to the proposed language.
Okay.
So basically, duplication of efforts.
So,
You don't have to spell that out specifically because it's included.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels weird to specifically
Right.
define out one thing and not all of
All
the
the
things.
So we have consensus to do not pass?
Yep.
Yep.
29, decision-making process. This is also recommended as a do not pass. The amendment is WASDA expects that school boards engage and involve staff, students, parents, and community in decision-making, and it's crossed out the word when possible. The board must maintain such authority as needed to comply with state and federal law. The rationale for the do not pass is the committee voted to do not pass because they believe that by removing when possible, local authority and flexibility are reduced. As a representative government, they encourage retaining the current position language.
I think you're taking away, like, in an emergency situation or something like that, that says we have to make a decision.
Right.
And you're saying, like, nope, put the brakes on and get a committee together and do all the things. So I think,
Yeah.
And I think we already have the legal right to hold an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and I think we do a pretty good, like, I think most districts do a pretty good job of engaging the community. And if there were some reason that we weren't, it would be necessary. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, like, I agree. I don't know why we would strike that sort of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
So consensus to do not pass on 29th.
Yes. 30 on diversity. This came from the resolution committee as a recommendation to do not pass. Let's see, the current position is WASDA believes that diversity is an important and valuable part of the learning and work environments in our schools. To this end, school directors should adopt and periodically review the board policies which promote and protect diversity through the affirming the humanity of each person and supporting the safety, dignity, access, belonging, and success of all present and future students, families, and staff. The revision is that they would like to take out, it believes that that diversity of thought and perspective is important. And then and value, and they've scratched pretty much everything else.
And are they for or against this?
This is a do not pass. And the reasoning for that is the proposed revision is too far of a departure from the current position, which was just amended in 2023 by replacing existing language describing diversity as exclusively thought and perspectives. The committee expressed.
So are we, I don't want to protect diversity through affirming, I don't want to do any of that. So, I need to understand. I mean, I'm not against it, but I don't think this is a really good thing.
Now, did you say what they're proposing is going back to the 2023 policy?
Well, it says
Basically.
which was just amended in 2023 to the
From-
exact
The existing one,
language was
Okay,
just
it was amended to this in 2023. They want to go back and then to what it was before 2023.
Mhm.
Okay, because I think that part of diversity should be thoughts, that kind of thing. Because, for example, in
Thoughts and perspectives.
a lot of universities, there is no diversity in that regard, zero. And so that's maybe something we propose for next year is adding the different viewpoint diversity to what's the now revised policy.
Well, I think, and it states it here in this committee rationale that the concern is about removing positive language in the existing positions, such as affirming the humanity of each person.
Supporting the safety, dignity, access,
Yeah.
belonging,
Well.
and success. Like, I don't think we should remove that.
No, saying.
And that's what they're that's what they're
At
suggesting.
the moment, I would go with their recommendation, let's say, put this on our list for next year.
To add,
To
to
add
not strike out, but just add in thoughts
Yes,
and perspectives.
Yes. I
as
think
well
that's really
as-
important, but the timing is bad for right now.
Right, but so like, we wouldn't, so do not pass this, agree, don't strike that language from it, but potentially to Dr. Rumbaugh's point, like maybe we would potentially craft an amendment for next year that includes all of the existing language as well as thoughts and perspectives. Is your, yes, okay, yes.
So Al, can you explain it to me like I'm a third grader?
No.
Come on, man.
But it sounds like we have consensus to do not pass 30. Is that?
Yes.
So 31 is titled Federal Role. This is, again, a do not pass from the Resolutions Committee. And so the current position states that WASDA believes that public education is a federal, state, and local responsibility that ensures all students are provided the resources needed to become successful members of their community. The federal interest is served by supporting but not supplanting state and local efforts. Federal agencies should avoid adopting or implementing rules and regulations that conflict with overreach state legislation. That's the current position. The amendment is WASDA believes that the public education is a joint responsibility between federal, state, and local governments to ensure all students are provided the access and resources needed to meet established learning goals, successfully graduate from the PK-12 level, and be empowered to live fulfilling lives. The federal government's role includes the responsibility to determine what rights should be guaranteed to students within the U.S. and the obligation to amplify and equitably fund any mandates established around enacting those rights. The reason this is
Previous language is stronger.
yeah.
Very long and wordy and
Empowered to live fulfilled, like, sure, like, I would like to empower people to live fulfilling lives, but I don't know that that's the place to have that wording.
Yeah, so basically the rationale is a do not pass recommendation because proposed language reduces local authority and removes supporting, not supplanting language. And the committee believes that the existing position language is stronger, retaining board authority while still being student-centered.
What's the planting?
It's where you
Burying or?
move dollars from one place to the
Oh, okay.
other.
and then you get to say we gave you one.
So, like, that's what they did in the last one, is they took money from one place,
Oh,
but they don't tell you, like, they tell the public, great news, we're giving schools X percentage of additional dollars in whatever section it is, but what they don't tell you is that that percentage came from our own pockets. It just came from that pocket instead of that
Oh,
pocket.
I see.
We're taking it from
I
one
get
bucket to the other bucket.
Yeah, we're not actually getting any more money.
I got
Just
it.
keep your eyes on the.
Is that right? That game. Well, that game.
Yeah, we
I like to
Keep
make a
your
lot
eyes
of
on
money on that game.
politicians.
We just get to spend it differently,
I
right?
play that with my dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe we're
Consent.
consensus on 31, 32. Local board adoption of core instructional materials. Resolution committee recommends do pass. And this is just a simple changing citizen involvement to community involvement.
Why not?
So the purpose would be to involve non-citizens where they might feel excluded. And so, yeah, because of, for instance,
Who
Mount
might
Vernon
be
might,
community members.
What?
Yeah, they might be non-citizens, but they would be community members.
like green card holders.
Wait a minute. I have to think about that.
I think that that's a great, like, I'm okay with it.
Okay, so that was a pass.
33, local board adoption of core instruction materials.
Holy buckets, lots of changes here.
This one is a do not pass. The current position is local board adoption of core instructional materials. WASDA believes that policy providing for course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials is the responsibility of the local school board. Such policy shall provide for board adoption of core instructional materials. The policy will also provide opportunities for staff, parents, and citizen involvement in development and review of instructional materials and participate on district instructional materials committees. The amendment is local board control of instructional materials. All instructional materials. WASDA believes that the responsibility of course design, selection, and adoption of all instructional materials rests solely with the local school board. Local control will allow opportunities for staff, parents, students, and community involvement in development, review, and selection of instructional materials and participation on district instructional material committees. That's a lot of work.
Sounds good to me.
It's already in the law.
Yes.
I think the rationale down at the bottom is basically like the current position is crafted to be in alignment with the law,
Mm-hmm.
and this new one
It's not.
potentially has some differences that wouldn't align with the current law.
Right.
I see the key point though, is that this local adoption thing is only for core instructional materials, nothing else. That's how I see. So that seems to be the main reason for the proposed amendment, is it should not just be core materials.
What should it be?
Well, more or less everything that's,
The law currently states core, and then it allows teachers and principals to determine supplemental. So for example, if I'm teaching fifth graders and I feel like they need an additional worksheet for something in math, the practicality of that being approved by the board and a local committee is not realistic.
So go back to Principal Allen's presentation yesterday, right? So she's using the Amplify curriculum, which is the curriculum that we as the board approved based on our committee's recommendations, right? And she was saying that there are some students that potentially need additional support. So she found supplemental things with like free online whatevers or additional whatever, and she's providing those to the students. She wouldn't have the flexibility to provide those to individual students. If you changed this, she would have to come to us every time she wanted to add something to say like, I think that this would help my students. She would have to come to a committee and us every time she wanted to do
And so
that.
now how will it go then? She'll just get it?
So if it makes sense,
If it
and
makes
it's
it
co-
easier
and
for does it make it easier for the
it-
teacher?
1000%, yes.
I'm all for it.
And it restricts a school from saying, we're not going to use the materials the board adopted, we're going to use these instead. That would not be permitted.
Yeah.
That's great. If it helps the teachers, I'm all in, for sure.
I'm thinking though, some of the most controversial instructional materials here, both nationwide, are not core.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example?
Well, for example, in the graphic things on sex, for example.
Those are core, so they're
Yeah.
part of health curriculum. So the board would adopt those.
Okay, so that's, I need to know about the definition of core.
Yeah.
And who defined it?
Core is defined as the primary instructional materials that are put in front of kids. So we used to think of core as reading, writing,
Oh, yeah,
math,
that's what I
science.
think.
Yeah, but now it's not about the content area, it's about what's put in front of kids and is used as the primary learning
So
material.
this is a wide variety of subjects, but just not the little supplemental things.
Right.
Right.
Anytime we're gonna purchase something to put in front of kids that's the materials we use every day, that's where the board weighs in. The supplemental pieces,
It would be
principals
like-
to be agile and teachers to be able to say, oh, I need an extra workbook for. But we do want to keep an eye on what is used in court is what was adopted and not something.
And for example, required reading for some class, like in high school, would that be just
article.
Okay.
And we have
Those
a
book lists are online.
we have a group of parents and teachers that do all of the, like, read all the books ahead of time and discuss whether before they become required reading. Do we not?
I don't know that they read them ahead of time, but they're involved in the approval of those.
Yeah. I'm making a
You must have hit the big cup button.
I apparently hit the wrong button. True.
I went for the medium cup, a little paranoid. Well, this is good, this is dinner.
So that was a do not pass, is that
Correct.
consensus on that? Okay.
34, local control, and there's several in this. This is just the first of a couple of different amendments, and that's why there's a number 1. And it's not in the case of where we're amending. We've received one and it keeps getting re-amended. There were several amendments that came that are similar, so that's why there's a 1, 2. I think there was a third. Was there a third one? No.
Yeah, 1, 2, 2, and 3. So
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's giving the school board more authority. I mean, it's protecting it.
So 34 is came with a recommendation if due pass, and it says basically it added that WASDA believes local control is essential to public education. Therefore, laws, regulations, and policies should be written to support the public election and authority of local school board directors. And then it comes down below and says, allows directors and staff to address local student equity issues. Is included in, instead of being sensitive to.
Was this
the
a
language.
pass?
This is a pass.
The worksheet says do not pass.
No, 34 is a do pass.
That's
No, it says-
33.
it says do not pass.
So,
Their recommendation from here it says do not
yeah,
pass.
so cross out the do not, that was
Do not
recommended
pass.
pass.
Yeah, 30,
Four.
should it?
What is it, 33 relevant?
It's 34,
Okay.
so that's a do pass, I'm sorry. That was my bad.
It's kind of complicated.
It's just a lot of work.
Thank you for all your work on this.
So, how do we feel about that? Are we in agreement?
If it's
do pass?
do pass.
Yes,
Number 34, yeah.
we pass that.
Mhm.
34 is a pass. You gonna go to 35 first, before A?
Yeah. So 35 adds changes, let's see,
96. Okay.
yeah, so 35 has, WASDA believes local control is essential to public education, therefore laws, regulations, and policies should be written to support decision-making of local school directors and boards. So they crossed out public election in that sentence and made it decision-making. And then down at the bottom it says local control should not allow for school district board of directors to decide whether to ban certain books or curriculum based on whether they include topics related to the roles and contributions of individuals or groups protected by anti-discrimination law.
And then they changed their mind.
Yes. And so the committee voted to do not pass because they were concerned about the removal of public election, therefore diluting the local authority of school directors.
How do you feel?
This is a double negative. I have to read it slowly.
I'm like, what are you trying to say to me?
So double
Should
speak.
not allow, local control should not allow for school board directors to decide whether to ban a textbook based on Roots protect. Oh, did they not recommend do not pass because they preferred public election language in the amendment?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't get to vote, but I would say
So
No.
yes, yeah, exactly, and that's where I actually went with this too. Is yes, I agreed to do not pass on 35, but 35A was a yes.
I'm trying to understand that. The underlying part, local control should not allow for school district board of directors to decide whether to ban certain textbooks. So are they in favor of that or not? I mean,
they don't want school boards to be able to ban a book.
35.
well, I think we
because-
should have the ability to, I mean, wouldn't call it banning books.
About 30.
I think it should be age appropriate.
But it does use the word ban here, so that's a distinction.
I don't go for
It's
that
banning-
ban. I
it's
think it's a
banning.
misnomer.
And it's,
We could make it age appropriate maybe going forward.
Then our local policies allow people to question a book.
And the other thing
and there's
is,
alternatives, yeah.
and the thing is, right now, the parents, my understanding is they have to opt out if they don't want their kids to read this, what they consider pornography. I think we should change it so that if parents want their kids to read that, they will opt in. Because if they want their kids, it should be reversed. It should be less trouble for the community. Anyway, that's something for future discussion,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, that-
you know,
we're on 35.
the majority I don't agree with wanting to see that for their kids, so.
I agree with their recommendation of do not pass and then, but to do pass the amendment.
Did they have a recommendation on 35A?
They don't. I don't think they have. They don't have a recommendation on any of the
Amendments. because
amendments.
They don't come back before the committee on the
Mm.
amendment.
I'm telling you,
So
everything.
we're do not pass on 35, and
Mhm.
we're looking at passing 35A.
Yes.
I believe so.
Consensus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll be out of here before 9.
Whee!
All right, page 98.
So 36, this is also a do not pass from the resolutions committee. Again, it's another local control. This was the number 3. And so the rationale behind this is do not pass recommendation because the proposed language changes the intent of the original position. And the proposed additional never is very limiting and could be problematic to the organization in its capacity as a state agency and for school directors in adhering to their oath of office.
Yes, I agree.
I want to back up to 35A. Because that adds local control shall not vote to ban certain textbooks or curriculum based on, yeah.
But they're gonna say, oh, look, they wanna ban books.
Yeah, well,
So that's the risk, but we're not banning books, we're taking control of what the kids are seeing.
yeah,
It's a misnomer.
because that was not in the policy.
No.
Yeah.
It's all about local control. But what's what taxpayers want?
Well, the board already has a policy. To your point, I guess you said that already, on objections to
There's a process and
Books.
There's a
procedure.
process of
But then if there are objections, that results in board actions to say, we're not gonna have so-and-so book.
We set the policy, they did the procedure on who it
Well,
goes
how would
to
you even
for
write a
review.
policy like that? That'd be complicated.
We have one?
have one.
Not handy.
I mean, it's online, yeah.
No, oh, you have one?
We have
Oh,
one.
okay, I didn't hear you
Yeah.
right. I'm deaf and
Yeah.
blind.
We looked at it.
What do you think, Steve?
Okay.
We're back on 36.
The recommendation was do not pass.
I agree.
Agree?
I do as well.
Consensus on that? 36 is do not pass.
Awesome.
37A down to 37.
It's just one page. So, federal strategic advocacy, this is a due pass. And this again,
This is a squishing.
this is a squishing, and then there's an amendment to the squishing.
Define switching.
Meshing it together,
Okay.
Combining two separate proposals.
both into one.
And I think we definitely want to have a stance on impacting the federal government.
Yeah, I agreed with the due pass on 37.
Amendment.
I wasn't sure we really needed 37A.
Well, that example is interesting. That's going to feel really outdated in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest?
This is Mount Adams, tiny district.
Yeah. I feel like I agree with the squishing. Like, I agree with consolidating. I don't know that that amendment is
I don't believe that we need to be adding the
like,
impact aid specific.
I mean, that's so,
That's
very specific to, yeah, like, not,
It's specific to this district.
right.
Mhm.
I mean, a few others, right? I mean, I think probably Oak Harbor would care about impact aid as well, but,
Camino,
Camino doesn't get impact aid.
but they would be interested in it.
We don't qualify for it, so, like, that'd be really great, but we don't qualify for it. Impact aid is if you have, like, a significant, so like Oak Harbor has
The
the
Navy.
Navy base, and so they don't have a large taxing structure because, like,
The
People in the
influx
mili-
of people
yeah,
that come and go.
people in the
from-
military don't pay the state or like some of the taxes. You're exempt from some of those. Also, they live in base housing, so they don't have, and they shop on base, and so you don't have the same like tax structure around. And so they call that impact aid, where the federal government puts some
Well, I
money
thought it was
into
like a tsunami or something.
no, like they put some money into that community to help offset those tax losses
okay.
from having that base there.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do they have schools within the base?
I actually
That's a good
don't
question.
know
They
if
used to.
Oak Harbor still has. So
They
if
did
they
at one point.
if they do, most military bases, every military base I've ever lived at, potentially has an elementary. I've not seen one stateside that had a high school. They usually go to the local. You get like Department of Defense if you go like overseas and stuff. They have K-12, but I've not seen one recently that had anything above K-5. Just from all of my years of living on bases. And I don't know that Oak Harbor's school on base is still running, if I'm honest. I genuinely don't know. But that's what impact aid is.
Thank you.
And native, it's like if you have a large population, is on a reservation, military bases, those sort of things. That
Gotcha.
would qualify.
Excellent.
So
Like if
agree,
you're
not
county.
agree.
Your county has a lot of national forests that is
Mhm.
not paying property tax. Federal government will give the county money off.
That would be one.
So
So interesting.
So 37.
Was it pass? Consensus and 37A was do not pass. Is that
Okay.
what we're saying?
oddly specific.
38, disaggregated data. This is a due pass, and this is a new proposal. which states WASDA believes that in order to identify and eliminate disparities in educational opportunities and outcomes for students, local school boards should regularly receive and monitor student data in both aggregate form as well as disaggregated by shared aspects of student identities, including socio-economic information as well as grade, program, and school information for both point in time and trends over time analysis.
I didn't understand a single word of that.
Some of the stuff that we got last night would have
Sounds fishy to me.
called.
I'd be surprised if there are districts that don't do this, but there must be.
I think part of
This
it
is
is
saying that they want OSPI to send us the data aggregated and disaggregated, is this not?
What does it mean? What's the difference?
It says in support of this, districts already are required to report disaggregated data for the state's comprehensive education data and research system, which is CEDARS. That's a term you will hear again. This is a longitudinal data warehouse of educational data maintained by OSPI, which includes data on student demographics, enrollment information, schedules, grades, program participation. Due to this mandated reporting, every district will already have its students' data available in a disaggregated categories that exist within the system, which can be reported, support boards getting the data in disaggregated forms without having to create new data collection or reporting systems.
Makes sense.
So, getting back to the understanding, so disaggregated is lumped together. No, it is.
Aggregated as like
aggregated,
whole
right,
numbers.
And so therefore, it's easier to provide that data to OSPI if they don't have to split it up, but it's more useful if it's split up.
If you can see where your pockets
Yeah,
are.
so more useful to us, harder for them.
But we already have to provide it for another system, so they're just saying, like, instead of providing two sets of numbers, we just agree that we would always use the disaggregated data? Is that kind of what I'm getting?
It's the importance of receiving student data in collective and categorical forms. You know, I wonder because in 2021, that was COVID.
Yeah.
21, 22, we did not receive from OSPI the disaggregated data on state test scores.
Oh,
What do you
interesting.
prefer? I mean, what's more
Disaggregate
beneficial?
Both.
Yeah. The summary.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we should get whatever's most valuable to help you.
Yeah,
So there's no out. The state would have to give it to us, according to this.
Yeah, they can't say, oh, it's statistically or like we didn't have time to run that. They're required to give it to us.
Well, and you gotta remember, again, all of these things, these are all things that we're advocating for.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're gonna happen.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. Well,
So this is our wish list, right?
WASDA does not have total control.
No.
Mm-mm.
We have no enforcement arm.
I think I think disaggregated data is very important.
Yeah,
So
me too.
It's a pass.
yeah.
39.
Social media.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I've been actually asked Stacy to print out the 40-page report from the Surgeon General on that topic. Yeah, he's really concerned about the negative impact of social media on kids.
And this actually
This
refers
seems like a
to
no-brainer then.
yeah.
That's a pass.
Yes.
Consensus.
Hungary just passed
Then we gotta figure out what to do with it.
a national ban on cell phones in schools. It's amazing.
We'll talk
You
about that later. There is a time and
It's
a
just a
place.
fun fact.
Yeah.
Just.
40.
40, parental rights. This comes with a do not pass for resolutions committee. This is a brand new proposal. I'll let you read through it. The rationale for the do not pass is the committee voted to do not pass recommendation because there is an existing permanent position titled Parents and Families are Important Stakeholders in Their Children's Education, which already addresses many of the concepts in this proposal. Additionally, some of the proposed position language reduces local authority, is duplicative to existing state law, or does not align with other existing permanent positions.
So, is this a pass?
This is a do not pass,
And also.
because it's a duplicate of
Something
already a position that's in place, that's permanent.
There's a recent new state law on the issue that was
Right.
an initiative, but then the legislature went ahead
And
and
put
passed
it
it.
into law.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and how's that impact this?
Well, it says that it actually is duplicative to existing state law,
the
so,
new one?
yeah, so it would,
And
and,
reduces local authority because we had no say on it.
yeah.
I don't know about this. What do you think? Wants to believes and upholds the importance of parental rights in the educational process. As stewards of public education, we firmly believe that parents play an indispensable role in their children's academic journey and overall development. Parents are the primary educators and caregivers to their children. As such, their input and perspective must be valued and respected by educational institutions. So this I am all in.
So we're not saying that these aren't good things. We're saying that if you look down here, so we already have a
Is there
position.
something
that's-
attached to this?
There is another
It's online,
permanent
yeah.
position that says, that's
But-
called Parents and Families are Important Stakeholders in their children's education. So this other one down here listed is another position that is very similar to this one.
They're saying the same thing, basically.
They're
I don't know
exactly-
about, well, then why would they change it?
They didn't change it. It's like someone didn't bother to read
They
through
didn't
the
read that we already
proposals.
had one,
And-
and they
and
just said,
decided
I
they
want to
think-
create a new one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'll have to look that up. That'll be my homework.
Yeah, so, and it tells you what it's called, so you
Yeah.
can look it up there.
As
under
long as
laws.
the families are the stakeholders, it's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Kids are not creatures of the state. Just
I don't think
another
anybody
fun
said
fact.
Now, notice reading the language on the rationale, it already addresses many of the concepts in this proposal. I wonder which ones it doesn't like, because there are things in here apparently that are not already in the policy. And which ones don't they like? And how does it interfere with
It doesn't say anything about not liking anything.
well,
I-
and my point, no, but still, why not this?
Mhm,
Because it does, apparently, according to the language of the rationale, this includes some things
mhm,
that are not in the, are already addressed.
mhm.
Is this similar to the one where we said we don't have enough information?
Yes.
I think there's plenty of information.
No?
I mean,
I
between,
I
we
mean,
don't
for
have,
me to vote on
If we
this.
don't have the other one to see what it says, and if you don't know what's different between this one and that one, you could potentially say that we choose not to vote on this one because we
Well-
don't have enough information.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get a consensus on that.
Well, there's not enough information in the rationale to oppose.
and we already have
Right.
our parental rights.
No, they don't. How do we, I just happen to have
It's right
research.
here.
Well, why would they go to the trouble of all of this if this covered what they wanted? It doesn't make
It's
sense.
just Moses Lake, that's it. No one else.
I'm
submitted.
a yes for this. I'm a pass. I don't know why you would object to it if it's just, repetitive.
Right, like why would you need the same, like, if you have two things that say almost the same thing, and then you have conflicts between the two, which one do you default to?
I'm going
That,
with this
like,
one.
that makes it hard to do.
Well, actually,
So why wouldn't you just propose an amendment to the one that's already existing?
many of the concepts means there's a significant number not addressed. And the existing required that's here.
Right, and I think the appropriate way that if you were trying to do this, the appropriate way would be to propose amendments to that position statement, not create a second.
But that's
duplicative
really
one.
not, that's not a decision, that's not a choice for us tonight.
It's not, so that's why I say do not pass this, and then to the point, you could potentially say if you don't like that, perhaps next time the appropriate way to do that would be to propose amendments to that one.
That'd take about a year or two.
Okay, well,
That's my stance,
Yeah,
that's my
that's
opinion.
good, and it's free country.
getting back to this list here in their proposal, which of these are we against?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some of these that are not in the existing policy according to the rationale thing.
So they're both similar, but this one has a little more to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we
More
don't know
broad.
because I don't have the other one pulled up.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, but just look at what's here, what the
What do
objection
you-
on this list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know that I have an objection pro or con against anything on the list. My objection is that if you have two that are similar that talk about the same things and there are conflicts, that you would have a problem with which one supersedes which and which one do you follow. So the appropriate way to add something would be to amend that other one, not create a second one that is potentially contradictory to what that says. Does that make sense? That's
makes
my
sense.
stance.
I feel like it's kicking the can down the road, and I'm sick and tired of doing that.
It's not conflicting. It's
We
just
make a
this one's a
decision.
little bit,
Mm-hmm. What, we don't
More
fear
in-
change here. Change is,
inevitable.
inevitable, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, so on the basis of what I just said, I am for this proposal because everything I see here is good and apparently includes some things that are not covered by existing.
so you would go for a pass on number
Yes.
40,
Mm-hmm.
and I would probably concur.
Thank you for the clarity.
Local control legislation, legislative committee recommends do not pass. This is again a new proposal. WASDA will actively advocate for legislation that retains and protects local school board control, provided that such legislation does not violate the Constitution of the United States or the state of Washington. The recommendation is a do not pass for this proposal because multiple member adopted positions already allow the organization to advocate for local control. The committee believes this proposal is therefore duplicative and unneeded.
I think it makes them accountable, and people need to be held accountable. I'm a pass on this, hard pass.
Yeah, I'm noticing a couple of words here. The rationale for do not pass, the already adopted decisions allow the organization to advocate. Whereas the proposal, say, WASDA will activate, sets a stronger
Yeah,
position.
yeah, we need
And
to
again,
be clear.
to the point of all the other ones that talked about local control, it takes away their ability to not if it doesn't make any sense. So it says that, like, if it says that they must advocate for it regardless of whether common sense says that makes sense or not.
Well, they're gonna do what we want them to do. They work for us, they represent us, and
Right, but they represent all of us.
Of course they do.
It's not just
Right.
our school district.
and
Right.
that's why we're here,
Yeah.
and I'm all for this. Aren't you? I mean, I don't see why you would be against it. Again, don't tell me it's repetitive, because if it was, why would they bother?
Because you can. And I
Exactly,
think this
Deborah.
is one of, please don't use that tone with me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I also would want to note, this is one of the reasons why we do the squishing. You know, a couple
Well,
years
maybe
from
we
now.
spouldn't squish anymore.
Where did this one come from?
Central Valley?
Where's that?
Central Valley,
Yeah, but where is that?
Spokane area.
Again, I have the same reasoning for do not pass that I have for all of the other ones that were very similar, so that's my position on it.
And I don't feel like it needs to be any more redundant.
Agreed.
Getting back to what I was saying, the reading the frozen position, doesn't sound like that mandates always every case proposing whatever, or it seems like there's still some flexibility in that.
And it's specific, they do not reduce local school board control. We will not have it. We control, we represent the community. So this is nonsense. Of course we would pass it. I would, and I'm pretty sure the people that elected me would.
Okay. You were going to say something?
Well, I'm inclined to say yes on this because it's, again, I don't see Rand's point, how this would be too restrictive or too demanding.
I think it takes the flexibility away from being able to
Using
say
the
yes or
word
no.
will.
Yeah, if you say you will do this, you're taking away their flexibility.
Well, that's what we want to do.
That's what you would like to do.
Well, that's what the, yeah, that's what the
That's what
community.
you would like to do.
Right, well, what
Yeah.
have you done for the school?
Okay. So,
I'm like this. I'm just telling. Like this is where we get to have our
I'm just
opinions.
asking, okay? Sorry, forgive me.
we have a do not pass,
I do. Yes.
Pass.
pass,
Do not pass.
It's all you, Al.
I would probably pass it.
You're passing?
So 41 is a pass.
I'm confused. Are we agreeing with the committee's recommendation or are we not agreeing?
We are
We're
not
not.
agreeing with the recommendations.
Their recommendation, and we are agreeing with the district's the proposal.
They're saying they don't want this. They don't want to oppose any legislation that reduces local school board control. Why would you oppose that?
We don't have to take their recommendations on everything.
It's us talking to them, isn't it?
And it says why. I think you might disagree with the why, which is totally fine, but it says it's because it's duplicative of other proposals that already say that same thing.
I'm sure hearing that word a lot.
And maybe they can go through and clean them up for us. There's what, 42?
I mean, I feel like 42 is the same argument.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's redundant.
like this is the point of the redundancy. Like you have the same thing twice for two proposals. Like, and we've had the same proposal 4 other times in here. Like, how many times do you have to have the same words over and over again? That's my
Every
point.
district has their own preferred
This
order
is
of
how I
this.
want to say it. This is how I want to say it. So they all submitted them individually, and then like that's my point. Is that 1, it reduces flexibility, and then 2, how many times do we have to say the same thing over and over again?
Does
So,
WASDA do cleanup? So they could have 150,
Uh-huh.
they could have 10 of these.
Yeah,
you pass 41, so we can not pass 42 and let them go 41.
so what are we doing on 42?
Well, it's the same as the one we just passed, so we don't need to pass it again, do we?
Well, yeah, I guess the question would be, which of the 2 to the 3 who voted for number 41 like better? And the 41 is less words and less districts supporting it. Yeah, so I'm okay with either one. So we could leave it yes or no.
Well, at least 41 talks about the Constitution and the state constitution. I mean, I think that's important. We're going to talk about local control.
Okay,
So
so
we'll say that 41 and do not pass 42.
Yeah.
We're up to learning finally.
So 43, instructional materials content. Resolution committee says do not pass. This was, the amendment is, let's see. Current position says, WASDA believes it is the responsibility of the local school board to provide instructional materials that support Washington State's goals for basic education required by state law. The proposed amendment changes or adds school board should engage and involve staff, students, parents, and community in decision-making process.
Already required by state law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just went with their recommendations on that whole category.
Makes me wonder why is the district unaware of the legislation?
It feels like Moses Lake has had some weird ones that
Mm-hmm.
feel oddly personal. You know what I mean? Like maybe like we need to remind ourselves that this is what we do.
If anything, I would say, you know, it would make sense to say school boards should be aware of the law that
Yeah.
So 43 recommendation do not pass, and we agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, consensus?
Yeah.
All right.
You know, I'm not. All right. Sorry, I'm sleepy.
the law already requires we do that.
Yeah, I
so
got
if the
that. I'm
board
sorry.
tried to, they would, well, only I would be trying.
I believe you.
So 44 is Native American instructional materials, and this comes with a due pass. WASDA believes instructional materials based on local Native American tribal heritage should be included in district social studies course design. They've crossed that sentence out and added board should engage in government-to-government consultation with local Native nations to implement since time immemorial instructional materials. This process and materials should be fully funded.
That's a pass.
Fully funded?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good deal.
All right.
Amply funded.
44 is a pass.
And going back to the original, the wording they crossed out is good stuff too.
It's more, I think the new wording is more specific to what really needs to happen in order for us to get have.
I mean, don't we already teach this? I mean, don't we already teach this?
Yes, but Native American Tribal Heritage Group is now called government to government.
What does that mean? What does that look like?
Tribal governments and the U.S. government confer together to develop materials.
And
Teaching.
what's this since time immemorial?
That's the law that requires social studies courses include Native American context.
Okay,
Oh, I can't believe it didn't.
It sounds like it's a commercial product. Okay. Huh. So how's that defined again?
STI is the requirement to include Native materials in social studies classes, and government to government is the mechanism where we get those materials. So
Are they
the
assuming we
tribes-
don't teach it?
No, they're just using current language.
Mm.
Government to government is how we now describe the partnership between our tribes.
So for example, here, we have a bunch of local tribes and a bunch of other tribes across the country. And so this is focusing on our local tribes.
Or all tribes, probably?
It's more all tribes.
Well, that doesn't seem unreasonable. I'm surprised we don't already do it.
Well,
It's not fully funded either.
Unless it's
Yeah.
gonna cost extra.
What it currently does is they don't fund it.
Stage. Okay, 44 is a pass. Okay. Consensus.
45 is literacy, and this comes with a recommendation of due pass. This is a new proposal. says WASDA believes that literacy is foundational to all learning and central to supporting every student in informed decision-making, active civic participation, achieving their academic goals, and increased economic opportunities. Therefore, the local school board should adopt policies that support evidence-based literacy acquisition that improves all students' literacy rates and eliminates disparities in literacy across all grades.
Very much so. Getting back to my college situation, I was on Academic Standards Committee, and we discussed this issue. What do we do about the ones we hear are graduating who are illiterate with a college degree from us? Because they have gotten not just to us, but through certain selected professors who were loose and allow them to just continue on and make the paper standards for graduation. We're talking about, do we need a test that would be for literacy? I don't remember what we did. But it's really, really important because we talk about assuring good outcomes. If the outcome is that our students are somehow illiterate, then that's bad for them. So,
Terrible.
Yeah.
That means
that's not
very
poor future. So
What a disservice.
My only question on this would be in the third paragraph. It says, as we develop a systematic literacy framework for
That's the
K-12.
rationale.
I just don't know who the we is then.
Well, these districts are talking about their own personal experiences to why they're wanting to push this
So that's
forward.
the rationale from the submitting districts, so that would be Peninsula, Lake Washington, and Shoreline school districts that.
I just don't know that they developed a literacy framework for K-12. It doesn't matter, but
Yeah, yes, I don't know, but
they're not wrong.
yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
yes.
yeah, I agree to pass, yeah.
We have consensus on 45 to pass.
46 and 46A.
Page 113. I needed that. Alex Vernon School District was also very busy. Huh?
So this is in regards to multilingual learners.
Yes, they should fully fund it.
So the 46 is the striking out of including language acquisition, coursework, and cultural responsiveness training as part of the core requirements of teacher education. Is that what I'm to understand?
But there's no mechanism.
And then 46A is the adding.
Well,
in
and
of-
then the other thing is they're mandating ELL endorsement. So that's in 46, which is recommended as a do not pass. 46A strikes back through the mandating the ELL endorsement, and then also adds back the included language acquisition.
It feels like a bit of an overreach for WASDA to say every teacher coming out of college needs to have an MLL endorsement.
Well, and that's the rationale behind it.
Is that important?
It's important that as a teacher I understand how to work with students whose first language isn't English, but I don't know that I need a state endorsement in that. This amendment is much better.
Right.
Imagine the cost for students.
Well, exactly, and that's what they're talking about here is mandating any endorsement could come at a cost to the district.
Because we would have to go back and provide, because we would have, like, any of our teachers that don't currently have that, they would have to get that, right?
Mhm.
What's ELL?
That's the previous version of MLL.
Okay,
So instead of English language learners, it's multi-language learners.
okay, would that be like what we used to call ESL?
Same thing.
Is it just one language or any language?
Any language.
But they don't need a linguist in any language a student is, right? That'd be something, wouldn't
So,
I also said before that, WASDA does not have an enforcement arm,
Yeah, so I don't know how you would.
it? That's interesting.
but it's not, they can't reach out to the universities and say,
You must.
aha.
Yeah.
okay, so we will,
So 46 is recommended do not pass.
Yeah, I should.
46A we would pass.
Yes.
So are we in agreement on 46 do not pass and 46A pass?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Excuse me.
47,
Turn the heat up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be-
Now that we're done.
now that we're
We're
done,
on the last one.
flexibility of graduation requirements for students impacted by COVID-19. And this is actually a retirement proposal, so its recommendation is to retire. And so they're asking us to pass.
Sound good to everybody? 47 is a pass.
that was easy.
We need an easy button.
48, school athletic officials. WASDA will initiate and support legislation that protects school athletic officials from injury and holds those who threaten or harm school athletic officials accountable for their actions.
Yeah, some parents have gotten very, very terrible at some events. I actually had a coach. I keep score for the girls volleyball, and I actually had a coach come over and yell at me for how I was keeping score, and then she yelled at the ref as well. Like it was bad.
It's only a game.
Yeah, and she was yelling at, so like we had a high school, like the student, so I keep the manual, like, or I keep the clock that's on the thing, and then one of the students keeps the individual, like the scoreboard in a book so that we can cross-reference and make sure that we're keeping each other correct. She was yelling at Mallory, and I was like, hey, if you have a problem with the board, you should probably talk to an adult. It was bad, like,
Wow.
they're getting really intense, so I am all for protecting those referees and officials because it's intense.
So, looking beyond today, should we adopt some policies cracking down on that kind of stuff?
That's a good idea.
I mean, I think we have that, and we do give the speech of like being whatever. And I think the referee talked to because it was a C team. I think the ref went and talked to the head coach afterwards because it was pretty outrageous. But yeah, it was bad.
So we're in agreement.
Yeah,
Is there enough
48
follow-up?
is a pass, correct?
I'm sorry?
Is there enough follow-up? So in that case, I guess it was, but
Yeah, I mean, and again, like I just know that scenario because
We have one
it
more.
specifically impacted me. But I think that they do a pretty. I've seen parents removed from gyms and students removed from football games and things like that.
So there's one last, which was the emergency position that I handed you guys. This is in regards to insurance premiums, and the proposed new position is WASDA shall initiate or support legislation that requires the state to fully fund any increases in the cost of insurance premiums in excess of inflation, particularly those that result from change in state law made by the legislature.
This is another one where Ruth will be disappointed in me.
Yeah, I mean, our risk pool costs have gotten astronomical
Yeah.
because of some of the changes that they've made.
Well,
and
insurance
just-
across the board, it's just been,
I work in the industry. It's crazy. Yeah.
so, are we in
I
agreement?
say thumbs up.
Okay, consensus is that is a pass.
And on that note, I will hand it back to President Schreiber to
Thank you.
close us out.
Thank you for all
Thank you
that,
all for being
Charlotte.
here and for being cordial in our discussions, and there being no further business, the September 18th, 2024 study session is hereby adjourned.
And it's not even 8 o'clock.
Oh, yay!
Like that earlier.
Oh, Jimmy's is still open.
Thank you all.